My cousin wrote a best-selling novel based on my traumatic childhood without telling me. Now everyone thinks he's a genius. Hey, before we move on to the video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Thanks. I don't really know where to start with this, so I'll just say it. My cousin became famous for writing a novel that's basically a carbon copy of my childhood trauma. He didn't ask me, didn't tell me, and never gave me credit. And now he's being called one of the boldest literary voices of our generation for telling a story that never belonged to him. I'm not writing this for revenge. I'm writing it because I feel like I'm going crazy. So here's some context. I grew up in a house that was more like a war zone than a home. My dad was one of those people who could walk into a room and suck all the air out of it. On his good days, he was cold and sarcastic. On his bad days, he was terrifying. Screaming, slamming doors, throwing things. Sometimes hitting, sometimes worse. I spent most of my childhood holding my breath, waiting for the next explosion. My mom, well, she was there. Physically. Emotionally, she checked out when I was around 8. She'd lock herself in the bedroom, headphones in, sleeping pills on the nightstand. I don't think she wanted to see what was happening. I don't think she could. I remember one night when I was 9, this is one of the scenes my cousin later wrote into his book, almost word for word. My dad came home drunk, furious that I left my bike in the driveway. He screamed at me for a solid 10 minutes before grabbing me by the arm and dragging me to the hall closet. He shoved me inside, slammed the door, and told me I could come out when I learned to respect other people's property. He left me in there for 2 days. No food, just a bottle of water and a bucket to piss in. That was normal in my house. That was love, apparently. I wasn't allowed to tell anyone what went on behind closed doors. My dad made that very clear. And when child services did show up once, I think a teacher called them after I came to school with bruises on my arms. My dad put on his friendly neighborhood handyman act. My mom smiled and nodded like everything was perfect. I lied through my teeth, just like I was told. But there was one person I eventually told the truth to, my cousin, Leo. Leo was 2 years older than me. His mom, my aunt, was my dad's sister, but nothing like him. She was kind, warm, the kind of person who made you hot chocolate when you were sad. I spent a lot of weekends at their house. I think it was the only reason I survived my childhood. It was the only place I felt safe. Leo and I were close in that quiet, nerdy kid way. We'd play old video games, write stories together, hide out in the basement, and make up worlds where no one hit you for forgetting to do the dishes. He always wanted to be a writer. Even when we were kids, he carried around a little black notebook and wrote down things he heard people say. I think I was 13 or 14 the first time I told him what was really happening at home. It wasn't even a big confession. We were in the basement playing some old RPG, and I offhandedly mentioned the closet thing. I laughed when I said it, like it was just a funny story. But Leo didn't laugh. He looked at me like I just told him I killed someone. He said, "That's not normal, man." And for some reason, that broke me. I told him everything that night. The screaming, the bruises, the time my dad held a lit cigarette against my shoulder to teach me a lesson. I told him how my mom would pretend not to hear anything, how I used to fake illnesses at school just so I could nap in the nurse's office, the only quiet place in my life. Leo listened. He didn't interrupt, didn't ask stupid questions, didn't say, "Are you sure it was that bad?" He just sat there and let me talk. Afterward, he said, "I'll never forget this. But I'll never tell anyone. Not unless you want me to." He was the first person who made me feel like I wasn't crazy. That night meant everything to me. It still does. For years, I kept it locked away like some sacred thing. I trusted Leo with a part of me I never gave anyone else. And he carried it, silently, just like he promised. Or so I thought. I didn't keep in touch with much of my extended family after I turned 18. I left home the minute I graduated high school. Didn't go to prom. Didn't walk the stage at graduation. I had a duffel bag, a beat-up Honda, and a half scholarship to a community college 2 towns over. That was enough. I worked graveyard shifts at a gas station to pay rent. Slept 3 hours a night. Ate instant noodles and lost weight. The thing about surviving a house like mine is that you get real good at surviving anything. Pain doesn't scare you. Hunger doesn't scare you. People do, sometimes. But you learn how to hide. I didn't talk to my parents again. Not once. They never reached out. I heard through the grapevine that my dad got remarried and moved states. Good for him. My mom died of liver failure when I was 25. I didn't go to the funeral. I didn't feel much of anything. Leo and I still talked occasionally. Birthdays, Christmas, the odd text here and there. When I was 23, I got invited to his wedding. It was small, tasteful, and weirdly formal for a guy who once pretended to be a talking sword in our basement D&D campaigns. He married a sweet woman named Megan, a teacher. I remember thinking they were a good match. Grounded, creative, nice people. At the time, Leo was freelancing as a copywriter and ghostwriting for tech blogs. I asked if he was still writing stories. He said, "I've been working on something big. A novel." That was it. Just that one sentence. I said, "Cool, man. Let me know if you ever want someone to read it." He laughed and said, "You'd be surprised. You've already read more of it than you think." I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't ask. Fast forward a few years. I was 32, still working IT help desk jobs, making enough to keep a roof over my head and food on the table. Not thriving. Not failing. I had a dog, a used car, and a studio apartment with one window that didn't close right. I was doing fine. Then, one morning, I woke up to a message from a mutual cousin I hadn't spoken to since we were kids. Her message just said, "Hey, I read Leo's book. It's incredible. Reminded me a lot of, well, you. Did he ever talk to you about it?" I blinked at the screen. I didn't know what she meant. I knew Leo had written something, but I hadn't heard anything since that wedding. I asked her what book she was talking about. She sent me a link. It was titled Ashes of the Boy Who Stayed Quiet. The cover was minimalist. A small pair of shoes outside a closet door. Subtle. Literary. Artistic. I clicked on the preview and read the first chapter. And then the second. And the third. By chapter 4, I was shaking. It was me. It was my life. It wasn't inspired by my story. It was my story. Word for word in some places. Page after page of things I had never told anyone but Leo. The closet incident was there. So was the respect other people's property line, almost verbatim. So was the bucket. The bruises. The fake illness routine. Even the damned bottle of water. He changed names. Gave the father a different job. Renamed the town. But the bones of it, the soul of it, was mine. He didn't even bother disguising some of the smaller details. There was a scene where the narrator hides his bruises during swim class by faking a cramp. I told Leo that story once. In passing. When we were kids. And now it was in his book. Sitting on a shelf in bookstores. Getting 5-star reviews from people who thought it was powerful, harrowing, and a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. I wish I could say I picked up the phone and called him right away. I didn't. I stared at my computer screen for a long time. I Googled the book. I found interviews he'd done, articles calling him a fresh voice in trauma-informed storytelling. There was one quote from him that made me want to punch through the wall. I drew from a lot of stories I've heard over the years. Some of it personal, some of it imagined. But I think truth lives in the emotional core, not in the facts. Not in the facts. That's what he said. My childhood. My trauma. The things I endured in silence. The nights I cried until my throat closed. The things I told him with shaking hands and a choked voice, all reduced to not the facts. He never mentioned me. Never acknowledged me. Just took my life and turned it into fiction. Eventually, I messaged him. I didn't say much. Just, "Hey, I read the book." He responded a few hours later. "Hey man, glad you checked it out. It's getting some great buzz," smiley face. I stared at that smiley face for a solid 5 minutes. I wanted to scream. I replied, "Did you seriously use my life for your book?" The dots appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared. Then finally, a lot of people's lives inspired it. But yeah, yours was a big part of it. I thought you'd be okay with it. It's not like I used your name or anything. I said, "You never asked." "Not once." He responded, "You told me you never wanted to relive it. I figured this way it could help people without putting you through that." Help people. He thought stealing my trauma and publishing it under his name without permission was somehow a favor to me. I didn't respond after that. I didn't trust myself not to say something I couldn't take back. Instead, I sat with it. I sat with the knowledge that the most painful parts of my life were now a product, something that could be reviewed, ranked, and dissected in Goodreads forums by strangers drinking oat milk lattes. And the worst part? People loved it. They called him a genius, a visionary, a survivor. Leo, the golden boy from the warm, safe house. The one who had 2 loving parents, a stable home, and a childhood that didn't leave him with night terrors, was now being hailed as a voice for the broken, and I was just the guy still trying to afford therapy. For a while, I tried to pretend it didn't matter. I told myself I was being dramatic, that maybe I should feel flattered, that maybe the story was never really mine, that trauma didn't come with copyright, and that if it helped someone else, maybe it was worth it. But it didn't help me. It tore something open that I'd worked hard to bury. I started having dreams again, not even the violent ones, just the old, quiet ones. The dreams where I'm back in that house, 10 years old, walking on eggshells, flinching at footsteps. Dreams where I wake up sweating and can still feel the sting of my father's belt on my back. I hadn't had those in years. I stopped eating, started skipping work. I would sit on the couch and scroll through pages of glowing reviews, interviews, Twitter threads praising Leo for his gut-wrenching honesty. Someone even tweeted, "This book saved my life. Whoever that kid was, wherever he is, thank you for surviving so Leo could tell your story." That's when I started crying. I didn't want gratitude. I didn't want fame. But it broke something in me to see people thanking him for my pain. The version of me that survived those years, that small, hollow, terrified kid, had been turned into a symbol, a character, a plot device, and not even a named one. I tried talking to a couple people about it, an old friend from high school, a girl I used to date, my boss at work. But no one really understood. One friend said, "Isn't it a compliment, though? He must have really respected you." Another said, "I mean, you said he changed the names, right? What's the harm?" And the worst one, my boss, actually said, "I wish I had something in my life worth writing about." I think that's the moment I realized. Most people will never get it unless it's happened to them. Unless they've had their voice stolen, their pain repackaged, their survival turned into someone else's stepping stone. I started spiraling. I didn't trust anyone. I stopped replying to messages. I skipped a family event just to avoid the possibility of seeing Leo's name mentioned. I drank too much. I stared at the wall a lot. It was like being locked in the closet again, not literally, but emotionally. The silence, the helplessness, the complete lack of control. Until one night, something inside me snapped. I was sitting at my computer, scrolling through yet another 5-star review, when I saw a post on a book forum. Someone had asked, "Does anyone know if Leo's book is based on a real story?" I read that he hinted it was, but I wonder who the kid actually was. And there were a dozen replies. Speculations. Theories. People digging through interviews, trying to guess who the boy who stayed quiet really was. No one guessed me. No one could. Because I wasn't in the story. I was just the raw material. And something about that just broke the dam. I opened a blank page. And I started writing. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know if anyone would read it. But I wrote for 6 hours straight that night. Everything. From the screaming to the hiding to the faking sick to the first and only time I told Leo. I didn't even name him, not at first. I just called him my cousin. I wrote about how I trusted him. How I thought he was the one safe place I had. How it felt when I found out what he did. I wrote until my hands hurt. Then I posted it. Not on Facebook. Not in a blog. On Reddit. Some random subreddit. I think it was r/true off my chest. I wasn't looking for revenge or legal advice. I just wanted someone to hear me. I wanted to say, out loud, that was me. That was my life. You read it. You wept for it. You highlighted quotes from it. But you never even knew who I was. The post blew up overnight. Thousands of upvotes. Comments pouring in. Some of them skeptical, of course. This is the internet. But most were shocked. Angry. Sympathetic. This is disgusting. He stole your trauma. I read that book and cried. I feel sick now. You should sue him. I hope you write your own version. I'd buy it in a heartbeat. That last one stuck with me. A day later, I got a text from Leo. Just one sentence. "What the hell are you doing?" No greeting. No, "How are you?" Just panic. I didn't answer. I didn't owe him anything. He messaged again a few hours later. "You're making me look bad. People think you're accusing me of stealing your life. That's not what happened." I didn't respond. He sent a third one the next day. "Look, I told you it wasn't about you. It's a composite. I used elements from different people. You're being dramatic. Gaslighting. Classic." I left him on read. Then came the email, a long one. A full apology. Or rather, what he thought was an apology. It started with, "I'm sorry you feel hurt." Which, as anyone with a brain knows, is not an apology. It's a PR statement. He said he never imagined I'd react this way. That he honestly believed it was fine because you said you never want to talk about it. That he meant well. That it was art. He ended it with, "If you want, I can mention you in the acknowledgments if there's a reprint." That's when I finally replied. I said, "You had a chance to ask. You chose not to. That's not art. That's theft." I didn't hear from him again after that. But the damage was already done to him this time. Because my post had gone viral. It was all over Reddit, then Twitter, then book forums. People started connecting dots. Someone found an old yearbook photo where we were both listed as cousins. Someone else pulled up an old tweet where he talked about a cousin who survived the worst childhood I've ever seen. The literary press picked it up. An indie book blog ran an article titled, "Trauma for Sale, When Authors Steal Real Pain." And the dam burst. Suddenly, Leo wasn't a genius anymore. He was a thief, a parasite, a fraud. After that last email, Leo went silent. Not that it mattered. He couldn't hide anymore. The story snowballed. First Reddit, then X, Twitter, then the blogosphere, and finally bigger literary sites. Someone made a TikTok about it that got over 1 million views in 2 days. The title was something like, "The Author Who Stole His Cousin's Childhood Trauma and Cashed In." I didn't even have a TikTok, but my face was out there now. Someone found an old picture of me and Leo from his wedding. I was tagged as the real boy who stayed quiet. That's when the emails started. Dozens, then hundreds. People from everywhere, readers, therapists, abuse survivors, journalists, even a few teachers. Some wrote to tell me they believed me. Some just wanted to say, "I'm sorry that happened to you." One woman told me she recognized a scene from the book that matched her own childhood and was now questioning if he'd stolen her story too. Another man said he used the book to get through his recovery from alcohol abuse and now felt like he'd been manipulated. I didn't know what to do with all that. I'd spent years living quietly, staying invisible, holding my breath in case the past came back. And now suddenly, everyone was listening. Then came the media requests, small podcasts, then a couple of online zines. Eventually, a real journalist, one from a respected outlet, emailed me asking if I'd be willing to go on record. I said yes, not for fame, not to clap back at Leo, but because for once, I wanted to be the one telling my story. The piece ran under the headline, "The Ghost Behind the Bestseller, A Survivor Speaks." It wasn't flashy. It wasn't bitter. It was raw, honest, and simple. I talked about the closet, the silences, the night I confided in Leo, the betrayal, and I made one thing clear. I never gave permission. I never wanted the world to read my pain like entertainment. Leo released a statement a few days later. It was PR crafted, stiff, and transparent. The usual non-apology. "I regret if any of my work caused pain to people I care about. That was never my intent. The novel was inspired by many stories, including some close to me, and I aimed to honor those voices." People weren't buying it anymore. His publisher dropped him. His next book deal got quietly canceled. He deleted his social media. His agent parted ways with him. I heard from a mutual cousin that he moved to a smaller city to lay low, that he was devastated, that he felt betrayed by how I'd gone public. Betrayed. That word stayed with me for days. He betrayed me. He took the most vulnerable thing I ever shared and twisted it into a career move. He had years to reach out, to ask, to check. He chose not to, because he knew the answer would have been no, and because my silence made him look good. A few months later, I got a call from a small indie publisher. They'd read my interview. They were starting a new imprint focused on memoir and trauma narratives, written by survivors themselves, no filters, no appropriation, no stolen voices. They asked if I consider writing a full memoir. At first, I said no. I wasn't sure I could go through it again, reliving it, digging all of it up. But then I thought about that kid in the closet, the one who learned to breathe through fear, the one who thought his voice would never matter, the one who stayed quiet because speaking up felt like a death sentence. And I thought, maybe it's time he finally got to speak. So I said yes. It took a year. Some weeks I couldn't write more than a paragraph. Some nights I cried over the keyboard. But I kept going. And I made sure every word was mine. No one else's lens. No one else's name on the cover. When the memoir came out, it didn't hit #1. It didn't get a Netflix deal or a book tour. But it reached people. Real people. The ones who needed to read it. I started getting letters again, not fan mail, but the kind of letters that feel like lifelines. People telling me they were finally going to therapy. that they finally saw their own childhood in mine, that they no longer felt crazy. One guy wrote, "Your story didn't save me, but it made me feel less alone." And that's something. That meant more than any review ever could. I never heard from Leo again. Not after the article. Not after the book. Not even when a major newspaper ran a retrospective about literary ethics and used his name in a section called Case Study. When inspiration becomes exploitation, he's gone quiet. And for once, I'm glad it's him doing the staying quiet. People ask me sometimes if I'd ever forgive him. The truth is, forgiveness isn't even on the table. He had a choice. He made it. He looked at my scars and saw a shortcut. What I did, speaking up, reclaiming the story, that wasn't revenge. It was justice. It was survival, again, but this time on my terms. Because the worst thing someone can do isn't hurt you. It's make you believe your pain doesn't belong to you. And now, it does. Every word, every breath, every page. Mine. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button.